406?
Yeah, that would be the same orientation of the shirt relative. This was a photo I took. That would be the same orientation of the shirt relative to the body as is the previous photo that you saw.
408, what are we looking at here with 408?
408 were two test fires I made. Basically wanted to see, or was kind of wanted to confirm that the rolling of the fabric wasn't caused by the blood. Shirt that was the same manufacturer and design, essentially the same shirt that Mr. Arbery was wearing. And I shot that 2 times just to see what that would look like.
So when you talk about a press contact, are you talking about the end of that shotgun in states 332 up against somebody?
Yes, up against the test material that I had testing there, yes.
Okay. And then near contact was further away.
It was, yeah, it was within an inch or two. It was right there at the fabric.
And when we look here at 409, what are we looking at? Here, I'll focus it.
So that would be, yeah, I was trying to read, that would be defects under the right side and right arm. So that's on this side of the body, on the right side of the body. Those were also consistent with pellet exit defects in the shirt.
All right, so when we're talking about Mr. Arbery, we've got this particular shot and this particular shot, correct?
Yes, there were 2 shots, one to the armpit, shoulder area, one to the mid-chest area.
All right, so with the one to the torso and mid-chest area, your conclusion was that it was what?
Contact or near contact.
And the one up here under the arm, your conclusion was?
The same, contact or near contact.
All right.
And that's to the fabric. You know, I'm looking at the wound, but I'm looking at examining the shirt.
Okay. So because you're looking at the fabric of the shirt.
Yes, correct.
All right. You're not the medical examiner.
Correct.
All right. So you're not looking at the body, right?
I look at the body to assimilate the holes, but I'm making my observations and my analysis based off the shirt.
All right. And the shirt really is just how much it tore and the curling of the fabric?
The searing and the tearing and the curling and the size of the holes, yes.
Okay. And you're not able to opine as to, offer an opinion to the jury as to the order of shots?
I mean, it appears from looking at the video that I saw that the last shot was the shot to the armpit area. And it also appears that, just looking at what appears to be...
I'm sorry, I'm going to object to Mr. Leopard opining what he watched in the video, which we've all watched now a dozen times, and his coming to a conclusion where the video speaks for itself.
Yeah, it's sustained. I mean, if anything, sustained as the question's asked, yes.
Without having watched the video, would you be able to tell the order of shots?
No.
All right, so let's go ahead and talk about this particular shotgun that is within State's Exhibit 332.
Yes.
Okay, I'm actually going to ask you to come back down, sorry. And unfortunately, you took your gloves off. You got them right there?
Okay.
Okay. You got it?
Yes.
So, how does that shotgun work? Go ahead and pull it out so you can go ahead and show the jury.
From start to finish?
From start to finish.
Okay. So this weapon has there's 2 places that cartridges are loaded into it. One is in the tube magazine, that's this physical bottom tube here. The other is into the chamber of the weapon, which is in the top tube at the rearward most section here. So cartridges are loaded in one of those 2 ways. If they're in the tube magazine, the slide, that is this, and that will, you have to excuse me here, that will not operate with this in place. But this slide, as it is pulled rearward, will pull a cartridge out of that tube magazine, and as it is pushed forward, we'll load that cartridge. It will elevator it up into the top, into the chamber of the weapon. That at that point the weapon is ready to fire. There's a safety on the weapon here. As it's pushed to the right of the weapon, that would be that way, it is engaged. That means the weapon will not fire. As it's pushed to the left, that means the safety is disengaged. It's ready to fire. So assuming it is loaded and the safety is off, at this point the only thing that happens is you pull the trigger. When the trigger is pulled, the weapon fires. Okay? The cartridge stays in the chamber of the weapon. And in order to load another cartridge in there, you move the slide rearward, the slide forward. That extracts the spent cartridge and loads the next cartridge from the magazine. And at that point, it's ready to fire again.
How many cartridge cases can fit into that shotgun?
Again, can I refer to my notes for that?
Of course.
Yes. So as I tested it, the magazine would hold 6 and the chamber would hold 1. So that's 7 total.
And when this shotgun came to you, how many cartridges and cartridge cases did you get that were submitted?
So in the box with the weapon, there was 1 cartridge case and 4 12-gauge cartridges. So 1 fired and 4 unfired. Also submitted in separate packaging from that. There was my item 14 was a single 12-gauge cartridge case. My item 16 was a single 12-gauge cartridge case. Also, there was item 17, which I don't believe we've talked about yet. That was 3 12-gauge cartridges unfired. I believe that is all of the 12-gauge ammunition that I received.
Okay, so excluding the item number 17, I think. No, I take that back. Hold on, I want to make sure I get this right. 1 cartridge case, meaning spent shell case, came with that gun.
In the box, yes.
In the box. Then you had 4 cartridges which could be fired. And they
Yes.
came with that.
Yes.
All right, so that's 5. Then we have State's Exhibit 334 and 336, okay? And that makes a total of 7, is that right?
Yes.
All right. So with this particular shotgun, how do you get 7 in there?
You put 1 in the chamber and you load the other 6 in the magazine, in the tube magazine underneath.
Okay, so you got 6 in the tube magazine underneath, you load 1 in.
Yes.
Okay. Once that one is loaded in, what do you have to do to fire it?
You have to disengage the safety and pull the trigger.
That's all you have to do.
Yes. By assuming, and I say that assuming by loaded, you mean that the cartridge is in the chamber and the slide is forward. Safety off, pull trigger, fire weapon.
Okay, so let's say, for instance, there's 7 in there, and I take the safety off, and then I go ching ching. What's going to happen?
You're going to eject the first one that's in the chamber. You're going to load the next one that is in. I'm sorry. Yes, you're going to load the next one that's in the magazine, assuming it functions correctly.
Okay, so if this shotgun already has 6 in and 1 in the chamber, I just take the safety off and pull the trigger.
Yes.
Now, in order to fire it the next time,
One thing there to clarify too.
Yeah, go ahead.
Your question about extracting that first cartridge. Okay, so there is a lever, I think it's called a slide lever lock, that's on the side of the weapon. Once the slide is forward and it's loaded, that lever has to be pushed to unlock that slide, unless you pull the trigger. So I don't know exactly what your question was there, but in order to take that one out, you would have to unlock the slide with that button, that lever.
So for instance, I loaded the shotgun, I had the 6 below and the one in here, in the top, the 7th
Yes.
one. If I just wanted to take it out without having to fire the gun, I'd have to hit the lever.
Yes,
So that's me, basically if I just wanted to unload the gun at that point.
correct.
Okay. But if I am about to fire the gun, I've got the gun, I just hit the safety and I can pull the trigger, will anything eject at that point?
No,
Why not?
because you will have to manually pull the slide rearward to extract and eject the spent cartridge and then push it forward to load the next cartridge into the chamber.
So if I have fired it once, I have to ching ching, and then a cartridge goes this way. I know I'm making noises, but cartridge goes this way.
Yes,
I'm ready to fire again.
yes,
I pull the trigger again. What happens?
the weapon should fire.
Is the cartridge going to eject?
No, it will stay in the weapon.
Until
Same
what?
cycle of order there. You would have to extract and eject by moving the slide rearward and forward.
And I fire it a 3rd time. What happens next?
Same situation. Slide rearward, slide forward.
Do you know how much pressure is needed to pull the trigger on that particular shotgun?
That is something I tested, yes.
And what was that?
I tested it 3 times and it was an average of 3 1/4, 3.25 pounds.
3.25 pounds of pressure.
Yes.
Let me have one moment. I want to make sure I covered everything. Oh, of course I have not. I'm going to ask you, did you measure that shotgun? And if not, can we measure it now?
We can, yes.
All right.
Did I measure? I guess that was your first question.
Well, as part of your analysis, did you actually measure the shotgun when you first did your analysis back in June of 2020?
Yes. The main thing we're looking there is to determine if the barrel of the shotgun is of legal length and if the overall length of the shotgun is of legal length. For shotgun, per federal statutes, the barrel length has to be at least 18 inches or longer. Overall length of the shotgun has to be at least 26 inches or longer. So we're just looking to see if it's longer than that.
And was this of legal length?
Yes.
All right. So what I'd like to ask you to do is come on down and measure the shotgun.
So I'm measuring from the butt of the shotgun, that's the rearwardmost point, and to the end of the barrel is just shy, I would say 38 3/4 of an inch. Just shy of 39 inches.
Okay. And how long, well, first off, when you go ahead and fire the shotgun, go ahead, if you don't mind, just sort of hold it in a manner that you might hold it to fire a shotgun, maybe up against your shoulder.
Okay.
And please don't point it anyway, that way. All right, that way. So you put it up against your shoulder.
Yes.
And you hold it. Your finger is there.
Yes.
Okay. So normally, where would you put your left hand? Where it is right now?
Where it is right now, yes.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you to hold it like that. From here to here is, well, you can't see that. From here to here is how long? Basically where the pull is.
To the trigger is about 25 inches.
About 25 inches. Okay. Now, are there other ways to carry and fire a shotgun other than just up against your shoulder like that?
Sure. I mean, that would be what we would call the normal shooting position. That's with the weapon up like this, with the rear of the gun against your shoulder, sort of in the crease of your shoulder. like this. It could be held unlimited ways, basically. As long as your finger can reach the trigger, and as long as you have something supporting it reasonably here on the forend.
Got it. Thank you very much. Your Honor, I believe at this time, I will go ahead and pass the witness. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Agent is Agent Leopard?
No, I'm a civilian. I'm just
Just
a
a
crime
policeman.
lab scientist.
Okay. Scientist Leopard.
Sure.
Excuse me. Mr. Leopard, my name is Bob Rubin. I represent Travis McMichael, and you and I have spoken before.
Yes, sir.
We spoke about, it's November, 2 months ago?
That sounds about right, yes.
Okay. And we talked about some of your findings in the case, correct?
We did.
Specifically, the muzzle to target examination that you did.
Yes.
Okay. But let me go backwards in time a little bit. You first, well, let me go even further back. When you, as a crime lab examiner, complete your examination, you complete a report.
Yes.
Has a case number, right?
Correct.
Has your name on it.
Yes.
Correct? It has your signature on it.
Correct.
It has a list of the items received or evidence received.
Yes.
And it has your conclusions or results.
Correct.
And you do that in every case in which you are asked to conduct an examination.
Yes.
Okay. Within the report is a report date, right?
Yes.
How soon after your examination do you do a report date?
It just depends upon the case. Sometimes it takes a bit of time to after the examination to wrap up all the paperwork. If the case is a situation where it's verified, microscopic work, it's verified by a second examiner, and then peer reviewed, it just that time varies.
Okay, so you don't have an official report until you've done your examination and your examination results have been and methods have been reviewed by another peer in your agency.
Correct. All those things are done and released, and that's the report date.
Okay. Do you have your reports with you?
Yes.
Okay. There's a case number which the state has asked you about, and it's 2020-600-1183. That's the case number for this particular case.
Correct.
And it's specific only to this case. There's no other cases that have that case number.
Correct.
Now you received evidence in this case as far back as, and if I'm reading this correctly, February 25th, 2020. And that would be the report where there's a whole lot of items received.
That is the farthest back date, I believe, yes.
Okay. Now, those items are not given directly to you, they're put in a lockbox.
Correct. They're entered in, like I spoke before, they're put in a lockbox, and then they're kept under secure access at which time they're returned.
Okay. And even though they're delivered to you on February 25th, you may not get to your examination for some weeks or months later, depending on your caseload.
That's reasonable, yes.
Okay. In this case, the items were delivered, and we're talking about items such as the 12-gauge cartridge cases, the wadding, pellets that you testified about, the 357 Magnum revolver. You got those on the 25th, but your report, your final report is dated June 10th, 2020.
Correct.
So it took, 5 months or so, 4.5 months for you to get to the items, examine them, do all the analysis, and then have it peer reviewed and then a final report.
Give or take that
Okay.
timeline, yes.
Okay. You have a second report in which you've testified about this as well, in which you.
I'm gonna.
Oh, I'm sorry. Didn't mean to do that. You have a second report in which you received items in May of 2020, May 11th. And the items you received were the Remington 12-gauge shotgun, right?
Yes,
And 12-gauge cartridge case and cartridges.
correct.
And you turned that around and wrote a report even earlier than your other report. Your report is dated 5/21/2020.
Correct.
Okay. And you've testified to the items you reviewed, what your conclusions were about the cartridges and the shotgun, the unfired cartridges, your examination that the shotgun itself was functional, all of those things you did in those two reports, covered those things.
Yes, I did.
Okay. It wasn't until a year later that you were asked to examine the T-shirt, right?
That was in 2021, yes.
2021. Who asked you to examine the T-shirt?
That was at the request of the Cobb County DA's office.
The people at this table,
Yes,
their office,
their office, yes.
not the medical examiner, right?
Correct.
Not GBI agent in charge, Richard Dial.
Not at that timeline, no.
Okay. So at that time, you were asked to determine the muzzle to target distance because it had not been determined yet.
Correct.
Okay. Did you ever speak to a former GBI agent named Jay Jarvis?
Spoke to him, yes, a few, I'm gonna say 2-ish months ago, 3 months ago, somewhere in that timeline.
Around the time that we spoke?
Yes.
Okay. And do you know who he was?
Yes.
And who do you know him to be?
He's an outside independent expert in firearms.
Okay. And did he call you?
I object to relevancy as to an outside expert having anything to do with this.
I think it goes to the timing of why he examined this clothing in June of 2021, as opposed to doing it back in May of 2020 or June of 2020 when the case first came in his office.
And I believe he's already testified that we asked him
Yeah.
to do it.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure where we're going with relevancy here.
I'll move on.
Okay, yeah, that's
Okay.
sustained.
Mr. Lepper, so we spoke in September of 2021. You had completed your analysis in June of 2021.
Yes.
And your results were that the hole in the T-shirt in the left armpit area, upper shoulder, and the hole in the T-shirt or holes in the T-shirt in the center midline of the chest were caused by shotgun blasts from a contact or near contact wound.
Yes.
And you've described for the jury that contact, of course, we know it means it's pressing against it, right?
Correct.
And near contact sounds like, from what you testified to, is an inch or two at the most.
It's very close. I wouldn't put a definite number on it just to say, I would just say that it's got to be close enough for that gas exiting the end of the gun to make an impact on the fabric to cause that searing and tearing and rolling back as we saw.
Okay. And the gun itself, the barrel of the gun, you said was 18 inches.
Approximately, a little more. 18 inches is the cutoff to be legal, so it was just slightly more than that.
Slightly more than that. Okay. I certainly don't want to handle that gun, and no one wants me to handle that gun. Do you mind stepping down, if it's okay with the court, and picking the shotgun up?
Do you have another set of gloves?
you'll just point it just at the wood,
Okay.
right there. Contact, near contact wound. If the wood were the T-shirt that you've described, could you show the jury how close that gun would be to that T-shirt?
Yeah, and again, this would be an approximation. Obviously, contact is touching the wood. Near contact, it's going to be close. I don't have an exact number. It's, you know, as it were, it's just an approximation. But it's going to be close to the wood, close to the shirt.
Okay. Thank you very much. You can put it down.
Put it down.
Please have a
Oh,
seat.
okay.
Were you ever asked to submit that shotgun to another department within the GBI crime lab, the fingerprint department?
No, fingerprints would happen before I received the shotgun, and to my knowledge, I'm not gonna say fingerprints weren't done, but they would have been done before me, so that would have been taken care of before I got the shotgun.
And you were not made aware of any fingerprint results as from an examination of that shotgun?
There are none that I know of. There could have been, but I'm not aware of it.
Okay. Based on your analysis of the shirt that you received from the medical examiner's office, the shotgun was clearly within arm's reach of whoever, Mr. Arbery in this case, was on the receiving end of a shotgun blast.
Objection calls for speculation as to whether that shotgun was within arm's reach.
I don't think it does, based on his testimony.
I'll ask him.
Can you answer that question without speculating?
I mean, I think it's reasonable to say that if the end of the shotgun can touch your shirt, if you are the victim, then it would be reasonable to think that you can also grab the shotgun. Is that answering your question?
It sure does. Thank you, sir. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Anything from Greg McMichael?
No, Your Honor.
From Mr. Bryan?
No, Your Honor.
Any redirect?
Just a few questions. So I'm going to take a look at your report. I just want to clear this up. On February 25th, 2020, what exactly did you receive?
So on February 25th, that would be the items from, yes, that would be the items from the medical examiner, both the pellets and wadding that we spoke of, as well as the clothing.
Okay.
Those
So-
were all received, and by me, those were received into the lab on that date.
Okay. So the medical examiner's offices, or how close are they to your offices?
So we're in the same building. They're a separate section, but we're in the same building.
So you guys are in the same building?
Yes.
Okay, so, but you're following procedure because you got to mark everything, right?
Yeah, as we treat them as a submitting agency, we treat them as a submitting agency just like we would treat any other agency. So they bring items over, they put them in lockbox or hand deliver them to another scientist or to another, evidence receiving technician, and they're treated the same way.
All right, so when we're talking about that, what we're talking about is State's Exhibit 343 and 342.
The autopsy stuff, yes.
Autopsy stuff. Okay, so moving down that particular page, when did you receive from GBI Region 14 Kingsland the actual shotgun itself? 332.
The shotgun was received May 11th of 2020.
All right, and then when did you receive the handgun, the Smith & Wesson 357, which is States 339? When did you receive that?
That was received May 22nd of 2020.
And States Exhibits 336, 334, and 335. When
Those
did you
were-
receive these?
Those are all of the cartridge cases, items from GBI Region 14. That would be the same date, May 22nd of 2020.
So May 22nd is when you received all of this stuff.
Yes.
And so then your report was June 10th of 2020.
Sorry, that report. Yes, that report was issued June 10th of 2020.
All right. person who called you up and asked you to do the muzzle to target analysis?
It was your office.
Okay. Was it me?
I believe it was you. It was someone from your, it was either yourself or someone previous to you.
Okay. All right. Anything else? Thank you very much.
Everything in those matters.
Yes. Do you know why Ms. Donikoski called you to do the muzzle to target distance?
It was my knowledge that they wanted it done just for the completion of the case, the totality of the case. So that was what I think she and we decided was the best thing for the evidence.
Any reason it wasn't done earlier, do you know?
It was asked earlier, but earlier on in the case, it was, asked by a GBI agent way earlier in the case. And a muzzle to target is not a service that we typically just do on every case. It's only done on an as-needed basis, and typically it's on an as-prosecuted basis. So a lot of times it will not be done until the prosecutor asks it, because one was the video in the case was evident, and that was asked by her at a later date, and we decided that if that was what she needed to prosecute the case, that was what would be done.
Do you know if the medical examiner came to a conclusion after his autopsy of a muzzle to target distance based on what he had at that time?
I'm going to object to the ME is about to testify next, so him testifying to what the ME said or did at any time.
I have not asked him what the ME said. I just want to know if he knows if the ME did a muzzle to target distance, not what the answer is, not what he said or anything. Do you?
So rule, go ahead.
Okay. Do you know? Do you know if the medical examiner did a muzzle to target examination as part of his autopsy?
I don't think he did a muzzle to target examination per se. I think he may have had an opinion on distance.
Okay. Do the elevators work in your building?
Yes.
Were the elevators working back in June of 2020, July of 2020, August of 2020, all the way to June of 2021?
I'm sure they were, yes.
Any reason the medical examiner couldn't come to you and bring you that white t-shirt?
That would be up to him.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Leopard.
Thank you. You can step down. You are released for the day, but subject to recall.